Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, it's me, Dazzle, by your Card 5 Vanguard deck profiles. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe, and let's watch, shall we? This time we're covering set 10 for Dark States Drajeweled Masques. So, as we all know, Drajeweled got a Masques. It's the final Masques of set 10. And yeah, it's interesting. In my opinion, it is the most, well, outside of Zorga, it is the second best one, again, in my opinion. But it had the weirdest deck build when I did it, and when I mean weirdest is I mean it looked like it was supposed to, but it wasn't. Like, some of the cards weren't running. I immediately get rid of them, and I'm smart for doing so because I got rid of shit that wasn't doing anything. I feel like a lot of people are going to scream at me for that when we get to the deck profile later on, but yeah, screw people that think I'm wrong on this because I have tested this numerous times. If you're lucky enough and you know your own luck, take advantage of it. Be a smart person. Take advantage of your luck if you know what's going on. I know what's going on. That's what I'm doing. So let's go and get this started, shall we? And we can see what I mean when we eventually get there and I have to scream at the comments or screaming at me. First up today, we have our starter in Julius Drajeweled. Grades boost, 5k shield, 6k base. All done road upon if you win second, draw a card. Standard starter, it's just a free draw if you win second. This is not the required starter for the deck because none of the ride line or anything in the deck requires it to be in soul or in drop zone or anywhere for that matter. But it's nice having it because honestly, the fact that the whole deck can kind of soul blast out the whole ride line in one go and technically do that multiple times a game, come on, why would you not try to do that? So, one of Julius Drajeweled in the ride deck, again, you can make a nice starter you want, but might as well go for the theme and the aesthetic, I guess, right? Then we have our triggers. First, we have our Overtrigger and Hades Dragon Deity of Resentment, Gale Drajeweled. Grades boost, 50k shield, 5k power. Overtrigger, you mainly one Overtrigger in your deck. When revealed as a trigger, move the card, draw a card, choose one mutes, expose move of the turn. And if you revealed it during your jet check, activate its additional effect, which is you can get during your turn, all your Vanguards get plus 10,000 power, plus 1 critical time to fight. All around, it's pretty solid. The fact it basically gives your Vanguard a constant critical trigger is pretty great. In this deck, it doesn't really make too much of a difference because you're already putting your opponent down to 1. The Vanguard already has extra critical. The Overtrigger basically makes it so they're definitely guarding it this turn now, where before it was like a 50-50, well, not a 50-50, but like a 75-25 toss-up if they were going to guard or not guarding being the 75%. But, you know, if you do see this, your opponent's pretty much going to have one hell of a time trying to survive, especially if you see it early on, where before you even drop them to 1, you're already seeing these Overtriggers. So, all around game is pretty nice. You definitely don't need Obari because that's overkill. Aha, I get the joke there because, again, they're already at 1, but might as well run Gale Drajeweled just because it's cool. So, 1 of Gale Drajeweled. Then we have our normal triggers. First, we have 3 draw triggers in Rouse while Master Ridley. Grades boost, 5k shield, 4k base, continuous guard circle. If your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 guard, plus 5k shield. You know, pretty nice to have a 10k shield available to you almost all times, which is pretty great. And also being a draw trigger to help increase your hand cards and have it there for defensive power. I swear I just heard something weird, but have it there for defensive power and, you know, getting your units out because this deck is kind of not necessarily piece reliant, but you're going to want certain cards on your board to do certain plays, which I guess is piece reliant, but you get what I'm trying to say here. So 3 of draw triggers, nice to have. Then we have a total of 8 crits and 4 lively breath dragon. Grades boost by 15k shield, 5k base. You know, being an extra critical is pretty nice. It can be any critical, but might as well run the, well, outside of the crit effect one, because the crit effect one is next. But, you know, any vanilla works, but I prefer this one just because, again, theme. And speaking of the effect crit, we have Steam Deviate Dragon, or STEM Deviate Dragon, as they changed the name to English, as proven here, and as proven here, this is the Japanese one, or when it was in Japanese. Grades boost 15k shield, 4k power, critical trigger, all over everything, about to boost it, put the soul choose me, 60k. Okay, in this deck, this is not needed. If you want to put it to a 5k trigger for the sake of number dropping, go ahead. The reason why I keep this around is because I know one day I'm going to need to find a way to send crits to soul, or any trigger to soul, or any grade 0 to soul, and Steam Deviate's going to be the thing that saves me. So as much as it's like a 1 in 50 chance of happening, it's going to happen one day, and I have faith in that. So 4 of STEM Deviate Dragon. It's just good, and one day it will be helpful. One, I don't know, but also just 8 crits in general. Then we have 4 copies of Caper Companion. Grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k power, you know, standard heal, no special, it's just, you know, you can, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, the counter heals, I just don't like running the counter heals because, you know, they're a little too situational. They have a 10k shield most of the time, and only in those specific situations they have 25k shield. If you want to run the counter heals, go ahead, because maybe you're a meta player or competitive player, more or less. But then also maybe just your locals have something that the counter heals would be good against, go ahead. But I don't care about winning, I just care about fucking around. So I don't really need counter heals, and therefore I prefer the normal heals. But I'm just gonna say this now. It's been a while since I've given a reason why I run a specific trigger over another. I want to say this now. In the original version of this deck, I ran Steam Skara, the one that came out with Barrow Magnus, whose name eludes me at the moment. And I said in the commentary video with Drajeweled, where Drajeweled in multiple games had a 1 of 7 chance of pulling a Miracle Heal, it never did. And then in a real life game I played before that commentary, when I had Caper Companion as my heal, I Miracle Healed twice in the same game, 2 following turns in a row. And I'm going to say this right now, I was fucking right to change the heal, because the second I did, not only did I start stacking heals more in general, but I mean, great, I haven't had to miracle heal yet, but that's because I actually stacked my goddamn heals. 4 of Capable Companion. I was right. Never doubt me when it comes to something so arbitrary, because I pay very close attention to arbitrary bullshit. Never doubt me when it comes to something like this. I am very good at this. 4 of Caper Companion. And move on to our grade 1s. First up, we run 4 copies of Twin Marble Dragon. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Okay, to be fair, I was tempted to cut this card from the deck, but one game that I had that where my hand was all purple and pink and red, which is so beautiful, I was like, fuck it, I'm keeping this in just so I that again. But also, it's a genuinely good card, but anyways, bias. Let's get this out of the way now. Beautiful Moon. Anyways, skill. Auto rear guard once per turn. When you still boss 3 or more cards at the same time for the cost of your Vanguard's ability, so yes, 4 would count towards this ability too. Look at the top card of your deck, put it to top or soul, and it gets plus 2k on turn. All around, it's amazing. Either you, guaranteed you get a deck stack. Either you see a trigger from this and you just keep it on top, or you see a normal unit and you just want to send it to soul so you can drive check more triggers, or also you just see anything that you want to send to soul because maybe you can fetch it out, or maybe it gets you ready for Drajeweld's next soul blast next turn, so you just send it to soul anyways. All around, and it becomes a 10k booster / ringer anyways because it can do it from anywhere. It's just a solid grade 1. I like its skill a lot. It's beautiful art and its skill is solid, so 4 of. Then we run 4 copies of Power Gem Dragon. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Auto rear guard when this unit boosts if you have 4 more, if you soul blast it 4 more times for the cost of your Vanguard's ability this turn. Counter blast 1, look, or at the same time by the way, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 card from one of them, put it to your hand, and put the rest into your soul, count the number of cards soul blast for 1 cost. Okay, I swear this thing has like the Michiru effect. So like, you know when Overdress first started, everyone that used 4, or mostly everyone that used 4 on YouTube, whenever they would use it, like they would flip over a heal from the top of their deck? Yeah, and how like Michiru, whenever he uses the skill in the anime, he always sees the over from the skill. Yeah, it's the same thing for me. Every time I've used the skill, I've seen the over. Like, once every 3 games when I use this, I will see the over, which isn't very often I use him, so fair enough. Well, because most of the time he serves the purpose of a vanilla because I'm too afraid of using up my CB, and in reality, I'm fine. It's just like, I am extremely paranoid. But if I wasn't paranoid and I used him the way I was supposed to, then yeah, I would probably be stacking the over a lot more often into my hand. But either way, Power Gem is great because he can get you a free soul card, and or 2 free soul cards possibly, and he can get you a card up to hand, which is amazing, all for the cost of a Counter Blast, which you do not have to use him for. It's just a good grade 1, so why not run this as a 4? Also, I just love his art, like him being a flaming dragon in like an icy world. Then we have 4 copies of our Repelled Malice Dragon as our PG. Grade 1 boost, 0 souls, 6k base, continuous sentinel, you have it to 4 cents, and deck on put a guard circle, choose one reads, it cannot be hit in battle, and if your hands 2 more cards, you carve and discard it. Standard PG, no spot basically means if this only one card you can't place on guard circle, you don't discard anything for it, which is great, because that means you can be as aggressive as you want in the early game, and then when your opponent counterattacks you, because maybe they were smart enough to not call rear guards to kill, and then they proceed to go all in with Persona right turn because it's fucking Avant-Garde, you can just quickly drop a PG and be like, oh, yeah, well you have to hit to get the to restand, so fuck you. Even though if it was a Persona right turn, it's going to restand anyways, but just pretend that they didn't Persona right and they were trying to hit. Fuck you, I get a PG. Even if my hand's at 1 card, you can't kill me now, bitch. I'm at 2 damage unless you see 2 crits. So, 4 Repelled Malice Dragon. It's a solid PG. It has the same exact skill as, trying to remember what the other, skill Hate Dragon. So, if you can run either of the 2, but because this one came out at the same time that Drajeweled came out, Raz, we'll run it with Drajeweled, so 4 Repelled Malice, just a solid PG. Then, that was backwards. Then we have our last grade 1 in the deck, and it's the grade 1 of the ride deck, none in the main deck, of Jewel Core Dragon. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto when it's rolled upon by Demonic Stone Dragon Jewel Neal, call this card to rear guard, and then auto rear guard when this unit attacks or boost anything, whether it's Vanguard or rear guard. This unit gets plus 5k power turn to battle, and at the end of the battle, put this unit to soul, the effect is mandatory. So, basically, no matter what you do, the second you boost or attack with it, it's immediately getting 5k and it's going to soul whether you want it to or not. So if you don't want this thing to leave the field for whatever reason, don't boost with it or attack with it. But either way, it's a solid skill because it makes itself a 13k booster, making it so that the grade 2 is almost guaranteed to hit on grade 2 turn, so you're going to guarantee 2 soul charges, 1 from itself, and, well, technically it's nullifying a soul blast from earlier, and then an actual soul charge from the Vanguard. And then, you know, being able to get yourself a rear guard makes it so that you can pressure your opponent on grade 1 turn, or grade 2 turn. All around, Jewel Core is a solid grade 1. I like it a lot. I was considering running in the main deck when we had certain space before a very specific card was revealed, and then I immediately saw that card, and I was like, nope, fuck that, running this card instead. But either way, Jewel Core is a solid grade 1. I like its skill a lot, and it's just good, so 1 of in the right deck. Then we have our grade 2s. So our grade 2s are interesting numbers. If you're wondering why probably the 2 most important grade 2s in the deck are at 2 ofs, or one of the 2 most important grade 2s in the deck is at 2 of, it's because I have learned something from Nirvana and Peltra, which is if you run enough cards at 1 ofs or 2 ofs, you will genuinely draw into them as often as you would if they were at normal numbers. And I am, again, taking advantage of the factor of luck. Again, I say, if you know how good your luck is or how bad it is, build around around it and then be smart with it so you're not wasting space. And that is exactly what I'm doing. I am taking full advantage of Lady Luck here. But anyways, grade 2 and stuff 5k shield, 10k base. We have Demonic Stone Dragon Metalbara, or Metalvala. I forgot to change its English name. I knew what I was forgetting. And then anyways, auto when it's placed on rear guard circle by any means. Counter boss once chooses a card from your drop zone, put it to soul. Then if your soul has 4 or more different grades, it gets plus 10k power for the turn. All around, great just for the simple cost of a counter blast, which isn't that bad in this deck now thanks to that one new grade 2, which we'll definitely get to later. You can get another card to soul. In this deck, unlike the other Drajeweled, unlike the original Drajeweled version I have for this deck, I've yet to run into a problem where I couldn't do the skill. There was technically one time, but to be fair, in that situation, I wouldn't have done it anyways, so, like, I don't know if that counts or not, but, 2 of Metalvar, easy to get an extra card in soul for the sake of soul blasting out the 4 different grades, and if you did have the 4 different grades prior to that, it's a 20k base. So 2 of Metalvar, again, I say if you run enough cards at 2 of, which in this case I am, I see them often enough as is. Then we have 2 copies of, again, the reason I'm doing this because I see them enough often as is, Demonic Stone Dragon Rocker Gore. Again, the reason why I'm doing this is because I actually realized something too. Whenever I would play my old Drajeweled deck, I would only ever play 2 Rocker Gores a game. There was never a game, except for maybe one, where I played 3 Rocker Gores, and that was because I kind of felt like flexing, and I didn't really need to play a 3rd Rocker Gore. I could have just called Ristal Galar. I just chose to call Rocker Gore for the sake of double restand, but which I didn't need to win, by the way. But yeah, I just teched it down to 2 of, and it works perfectly fine. Anyways, grade 2 and 5k shield, 10k base, auto rear guard once per turn when this unit attacks a grade 3 or greater unit, whether it's a vanguard or rear guard. If your soul has 10 or 4 more different grades in it, it gets plus 10k power for the turn. Great. So automatically, whether it swings into anything, as long as it's a grade 3 unit, it's a 20k base. Cool. And then its other skill is auto rear guard when you soul blast 4 more cards at the same time for the cost of your Vanguard's ability. If your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater, this is why I hate him, because both Viscos are restricted to grade 3s. Counter boss 1 and stand this unit. Can only be paid for the cost if you soul blast 4 more cards at once. Either way though, very solid skill. Being able to stand itself for multi-attack is great. Being able to be a 20k but on first grade 3 turn or second grade 3 turn, depending on how things worked out, a 30k base is just really good, especially when one of those attacks of your opponent's going to be at 1. So all around, pretty solid grade 2. Do not call both of these at the same time. I promise you there's no way to get them back. If you call both of them at the same time, they both die. That's your fault for being an idiot and following this deck build and playing like that. But unless you're really that confident that you can win on that turn, but at the same time, you're willingly dropping 3 CB for a turn. So take that as you will. Either way, 2 of Rocker Gores. It's just good grade 2 for restanding and power pressuring. And again, I draw consistently enough as is. 2 of. Then we run 4 copies of, straight up, the best grade 2 in this deck. No offense to Rocker Gore, who I do love, but this thing actually fixed my legit problem in Drajeweled, which is Counter Boss, and that is Cranium Burner. And I like how when the second this thing got revealed, I saw a lot of people saying like, ha, suck it, Nirvana. It took you 4 sets to get a goddamn counter charger. It took Drajeweled 3, and they only had a CV problem in one of them. And they got that fixed in the same set. Or at least for me it did, so fair enough. Anyways, grade 2 and set 5k shield, 10k base, gotta say it's an awesome art, and I'm surprised this thing's actually a rare and not a double rare. Auto rear guard until you attack into anything. If you have a Vanguard Drajeweled and card name, it's a free +2 to end the battle. So regardless of what it swings into, as long as your Vanguard's a Drajeweled, it's a 12k swing. Granted, that's not big, and that's probably the reason why it's a single rare. If it had 5k, then it probably would have been a double rare. But being able just to get +2k guarantee is pretty great. And then at the end of the battle, if you soul blasted 4 more cards at the same time for the cost of your Vanguard's ability this turn, retire to counter charge 1. Solid. Very great. You can cut your counter blast because you're most likely trying to do Rocker Gore or, okay, if you're playing this deck like I do, you spend about 2 CB a turn unless you're trying to go like for the kill that turn. In that case, you're probably spending 3 CB a turn, so, or 1 turn an entire game. So, you know, being able to use Cranium Burner basically to either cut the CB in half or like at least get rid of 1/3 of the cost is pretty great. So 4 of Cranium Burner. He's just an amazing grade 2 that fixes the CB problem and still swings for decent numbers on his own. And he has a good art. Then move on to our last grade 2, it's the grade 2 of the ride deck. 1 copy in the ride deck, and on the main deck of Demonic Stone Dragon Drajeweled. I always wanted to call it like Drajeweled because I feel like that's what it would be called. And it was grade 2 and set 5k shield, 10k base, auto Vanguard or rear guard when the attack hits a Vanguard, soul charge 1, mandatory soul charge, so technically your opponent can use as a strategy to deck you out if you ran it in the main deck, which you don't, so just let them take this as a free hit. Though I do know some people that would block this, mainly my friend who is all about cock blocking me. You hit Wingull Brave off 1 time with a full board of Wingull Braves, and you proc off enough skills to ungrade lock yourself, and then win the game a few turns later, and suddenly that causes PTSD. And then you use 7 Cs, and they take it of their own accord, not knowing what it does, and then do like the anime realization thing when they realize that 7 C's Knights or whatever his name was can stand the board. That's not my fault. Should have read the damn cards. I'll take responsibility for the Wingo Brave one, not the 7 C's one. But anyways, yeah, on hit pressure is pretty nice, especially when your opponent chooses to guard it, especially if you boost it with this boy, so it's a 23k column. And then, whoops, I went too far. And then auto, when it's rolled upon by you with Drajeweled in its card name, by soul charging 1, you can draw a card if you have 3 or more cards of different grades in soul. So you get a guaranteed soul charge, which is pretty nice. And then if you have the 3 more different grades, which thanks to Jewel Neil himself, or sorry, this thing, Jewel Core, and then the starter, you're guaranteed to have 3 different grades, so it's a free draw. All around, solid grade 2. I think it's just an amazing thing, getting a free soul charge one way or another. It's just great. So one of Jewel Neil in the right deck. It's just good. Then we have our grade 3s. I spoiled this one. 2 of Masques of Herudegarm. Grade 3, normal order. Look at top 5 cards of your deck. Choose up to 1 unit card with Dragotree or Masques in its card name from among them. Reveal, put it to hand and shuffle your deck. Cool. So, able to search a Masques or able to search a Dragotree card. I will explain a very certain thing after I'm done explaining this card, but cool. Free search. And then act drop zone. If you have a grade 3 Vanguard without Masques in its card name, reveal a grade 3 with Masques in its card name from your hand. Write the revealed card from this cost of stand. And then if you wrote, put this card to your soul. And then if your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 guard and you do not persona this turn, you can activate Persona Ride. Pretty great. So free +10 and a draw to front row, which is amazing. And not to mention the fact that you can get an extra grade 3 into soul, which you can proc off Drajeweled Go. I had to check multiple times, but Drajeweled Go does not say soul boss units, it just says soul boss cards, which is great. And then being able to get a free search of Drajeweled and then still use it the same turn is pretty amazing as well. And for those of you wondering why I'm not running Skull for searching or for the Dragotree markers, when I played those fucking 18 games against Youthburg, if you watch the commentary video, you know that only the 18th game, or what was classified as game 2 in that video, was the only game I ever used Skull Kemda, and the Dragotree marker was not the reason I won. Nor was it the reason I needed to win in all my other games after I got rid of Skull Kemda. And if you're paying attention to that commentary video, you also know I drew Masques for Herudegarm, which was also out of 2 of then as well, just as often as I do now. In fact, out of all the games I played with this version of the deck and that version of the deck, there have only been 2 games, one of those being the one on camera, game 18, that I have not drawn Masques for Herudegarm by the time I get to grade 3. I am not joking. I have no reason to run this at more than 2 of, and I have no reason to run Skull Kemda in this deck because the Dragotree marker doesn't do anything for me because I'm already at good enough numbers to force them to drop stuff, and I already draw this consistently enough. That is what I mean by taking advantage of luck, because now I am saving space for cards like these. 2 of Masques of Herudegarm. Remember, doesn't matter what everyone else is doing. If you know what you're doing works for you, doesn't matter if it looks completely different from everyone else and it looks stupid. If you know it works for you, do it. 2 of. Then we move on to our normal unit grade 3s. We have 2 copies of Demonic Jewel Dragon Ristal Galar. Grade 3 turn per star, 13k base. Auto rear guard when this attacks the Vanguard. If you soul blasted 4 or more at the same time for the cost of your Vanguard's ability this turn, put a hand card of soul to draw a card and choose one of your opponent's rear guards and murder it. Great. I love doing this because, it gets you not only a possible guaranteed different grade in soul for next turn, so you can proc off Drajeweled again, but it also replaces the card you sent to soul. And you can also kill an opponent's rear guard, which is all around amazing, especially when you combo with the new Drajeweled, so you can kill a total of 3 rear guards. If you call 2 of these, you can kill a total of 4 rear guards in one go, which is great. So not only putting pressure on your opponent so that they can't counterattack easily next turn, but you're also making it so that you can make it easier for you to do your play again next turn. All around solid grade 3. He's the only one out of my 2s, believe it or not, that I don't see super often, but even then I still see him relatively often enough. So like half my games I'll see him, and half my games I won't. Just depends on which game he wants to show up in. So 2 of Ristal Galar. Solid grade 3, does what I want him to do, does what I need him to do, just a good card. Then we have our last, well, not our last card, but it's our Drajeweled Masques. I have regular Drajeweled after this. So Karmic Demonic Jewel Dragon Drajeweled Masques. This beautiful motherfucker is a grade 3 return to persona, 13k base. Continuous, it can only be written from a grade 3 Drajeweled in its card name, so, and it does count itself. Act Vanguard Circle once per turn by removing a card with Drajeweled in its different card name from this unit from your hand, soul, or drop zone. You can choose 2 cards from your drop zone, put them into your soul, and this unit gets +1 critical at end of turn. All around, pretty solid. I like how when I did my Discord prediction on this, I was actually more, depending on how we look at it, I was actually completely right about how its effect works and like the whole thing. But I was right that its critical skill would move over to like the remove from game skill, which is pretty great because not only does this mean that you can soul blast the original Drajeweled out the previous turn, but then by removing that different name Drajeweled from your drop zone from the game, you can now get 2 more different grades into your soul, which is perfect. So you can do that next turn, or you can do it during this battle phase, and then you get an extra critical on top of that for double critical. So it's kind of a plus and a minus to changing the skill there because I don't like to remove the Drajeweled in my soul from game because I feel like I'm going to need that grade 3 for the soul blast, so I choose to keep it in soul instead. So there will be games where I could get critical right away, but I choose not to. That's just how I work, but it hasn't come back to bite me in the ass yet, so that's a good skill. And then Auto Vanguard. When this unit attacks into a Vanguard by counterblasting 1 and soul blasting 4 different grades. Again, it just says cards, not different units, so you can count the Masques towards this. You can choose 2 of your opponent's rear guards and murder them, and then you choose 1 of your opponent's Vanguards and increase or decrease power to 1 on the turn. And the other ability that I thought it would have was it was going to be able to guard or restrict for the turn, or at least for its own battle, where they're forced to guard with either 2 or more, 3 or more. If it was for the own battle, it would be 3 or more. If it was for the whole turn, 2 or more. But the thing I was technically right about, and how we can make that technically right, is they are actually forced to guard this beforehand. Because, for example, if you swing with Rockagore because they know you're going to restand it, they are probably going to intercept Masques, and therefore they already threw down 2 cards to guard with, and then you can use Masques to kill their back row, therefore they lost a total of 4 cards just by this thing existing. So all around pretty solid, gets rid of rear guards, gets extra critical, makes it so that you're more consistent in doing the skill overall, and the CB1, with the existence of Cranium Burner, isn't actually a problem. In fact, I argue this deck has less of a CB problem than the other one, and that's saying something considering I technically run more CBUs and I technically don't. So 4 of your dual Masques. Solid grade 3. I like its skill a lot. Being able to retire 2 and drop the opponent's power to 1, and also being able to get a critical and make the deck more consistent, just good. I also like his art. I think it looks cool. And then we have our last grade 3 and the last card in the deck. 2 of them in the main deck for the extra ability of this one. This is the only deck I run, the ride deck grade 3 in there just because I do want to proc up the ability as much as physically possible. And one of them in the ride deck of Demonic Jeweled Dragon Drajeweled. Grade 3, 13k base, active Vanguard. Once per turn by counterblasting 1, you can soul charge 2. And then if all the cards soul charge have different grades, you may draw a card. I like how in this deck, it somehow turned more consistent than it was before, even though I have pretty much the same exact lineup as before in terms of different grades. But fuck it, I guess logic is irrelevant, and the deck just chose that it's going to soul charge different names more, or different grades more, though it does still happen relatively often where I will get the same grade. But free draw is pretty nice. It's also a maze, so you don't have to if you don't want to, if you're close to decking out. And then Auto Vanguard, once per turn, or not once per turn, I don't know why I said once per turn. Once you attack a Vanguard, soul blast 4 cards with different grades, choose 1 of your opponent's Vanguards, and increase or decrease power to 1 for the turn. And then if your opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 grades, it gets extra critical. And power at the time becomes 1, it can't increase or decrease afterwards, so like if they sack the over afterwards, then their just power goes to 1 million and 1. But cool, being able to get a critical if they're at grade 3 is nice pressure, and not to mention the fact that you can kill their opponent's rear guards. Or not kill the opponent's rear guards. I'm sorry, I'm too stuck up on this one over here. But again, being able to drop your opponent's power to 1 is pretty nice as well. So all around, pretty solid grade 3. He can help set himself up, get you possible draws, and bring your opponent's power down to 1 while also giving himself an extra critical much easier than this one can. So all around, solid grade 3, 2 of in the main deck, 1 of in the red deck. That's a nice alternate option in case you can't go into him, which by the way has never happened to me. That's it for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. All around, it's pretty solid. I know it probably looks weird the way I'm doing things, but again I say, and this is a testament to my channel in general, if something works for you, regardless of how everyone else sees it, regardless of what everyone else says, if it works for you, and it works better than what everyone else is doing for you, then do you. That's all there is. Wisest words I'll ever probably walk out of my mouth here. So I'm going to end it here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join Discord, follow Twitch, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to stand up your Vanguards.